everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. In this video, we're going to check in with what's going on in California. You'll remember that this seemed to have been the first major event of the year where we had this California flooding, right? I was kind of first really, it really first caught my attention one day when I was at Costco and I got like a news story that popped up on my phone. And it was saying that they were worried that this was going to be an ark storm, like ARK, like Noah's Ark. And so I was like, what? That sounds pretty crazy. So an arc storm is a situation where you have um, essentially you have an atmospheric river that keeps sending storms to a particular area. And as far as I know, this is mostly just a California thing, although maybe it can affect other parts of the West Coast. But essentially what you have, it's like a worst case scenario. They call it California's other big one. The first big one being the big earthquake that they're expecting in California. And then the other big one, the other like worst case scenario would be this arc storm. So as it turns out, it didn't turn out to be an arc storm, but it did do a lot of damage. And I've come to my second coming timeline here for recent videos, and I keep looking at this column right here where it says California flooding, thinking in the back of my mind, I need to go back and check and see, is it done? Is it still going? I don't know. It didn't really make like really, really big news, like national news from what I've seen, but there was a lot of significant damage done. So I want to give you the update of where it's at. We're also going to look at something else I didn't really know. We're going to look at floods by year because it seems like floods have become a lot more frequent within the last few years. So I'll show you that in a little bit. So first, sorry. We're on a website called Vision Times. The article is called Widespread Flooding Offers Little Relief for Drought-Stricken California. Before I read this, let's look at the U.S. Drought Monitor. It's this website where you can see where drought currently is. And right now, Kansas is not looking very good. Throughout the entire time I've been doing this channel, usually Utah's always looking pretty bad, as well as California. Missouri is almost always in the clear, interestingly, in Kansas too. But as of right now, it is not good. So the current map, the most recent one that they have is from just a couple days ago, January 31st. But you can go back in time. And you can see there's red here in Utah, right? Some in Nevada, but as of late, California is only in the orange, which is still not good. It says here that this like darker orange color is severe drought, and then the lighter orange color is moderate drought, whereas red and dark red are extreme drought and exceptional drought. So not looking good right now in Kansas, my neck of the woods. But we have red that shows up in California January 3rd. And then still, Utah. And then let's look at September. Yeah, a lot of red in September in California. Let's look at July. July, pretty bad. Texas, almost all of Utah, a large portion of Nevada, and then California. So what's going on in the West is there's a mega drought that's occurring. It's a once in every 1,200 year. Well, I don't know if it's once in every 1,200 years, but the last time there was a drought this bad in the West, it was 1,200 years ago. So it's significant. It's happening now. Okay, so let's get back to the article. So you would think that, oh, wow, even though there's all this flooding and all this rain, at least there's kind of a silver lining. Well, it seems like that's only partly true. Okay, so this says, early in January, California was hit with winter storms that caused devastating flooding in many parts of the state. Well, it actually was late December. Based on everything that I've seen, um, it actually started the day after Christmas. That's when these rains started hitting. I need to find a source for that, but I did in a previous video. I just haven't put it on the timeline. So it started the day after Christmas, which is interesting because, again, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but we had two signs of the times in the heavens on Christmas. There were three giant asteroids that passed by Earth, and then we had the octet planetary alignment. And it also happened to coincide. Christmas and this planetary alignment coincided with the eighth day of Hanukkah. The last candle was lit at the same time that this alignment was happening. And then the next day is when you have the flooding begin in California. Okay. Um, Now, from what I've seen, it seems like this event kind of has ended as of the 15th of January. There's a few kind of like conflicting dates, but I feel the best about the 15th of January. But anyway, let's continue. So, at least 14 people were killed and thousands were forced to flee their homes. At one point, approximately 90% of Californians, some 34 million people, were living in flood watch zones. Now, you remember, if you watched the previous video that we were doing about this, that, and maybe you just know anyway, California has a larger population than Canada. Okay, well, let me double check. Population of Canada. Okay, no, they do not have a larger population. Canada is at 38.25 million. So it's roughly the same size. It's a little bit smaller. Okay, so imagine if 90% of Canada was living in a flood watch area. That's pretty dramatic if you think about it that way. All right, one would think the upside to the devastation would be drought relief, as the state has been grappling with severe drought for some time. However, due to regulatory restrictions and inadequate infrastructure, among other things, the deluge of water has done little to address drought conditions in the state. For example, despite 7 atmospheric rivers hitting the state and dumping upwards of 30 inches of rain over some areas, one of the largest reservoirs in California remains well below historic average. According to state data, the Shasta Reservoir is still at 56% capacity, well below the historical average of 87%. Here's just a few pictures from ABC News. Here's a sinkhole that took out this portion of road, along with a couple cars, it looks like. Just terrible. Let's see. You have some cul-de-sacs here and roads that are flooded. And there's a lot of wind damage too. A trailer park. Yeah, that would be mighty upsetting, I would imagine. So I feel bad for those that have had to endure this. There's a church news article, Members and Missionaries Help in Flood and Mudslide Cleanup in California. Wanted to read a little bit of this. The rains never seem to stop, as Erica Issa Sharps of Felton, California, watched her basement flood with over 6 feet of water. Nice. Between December 26, 2022 and January 15th, more than 20 million Californians faced flood alerts, with areas around Sacramento, Los Angeles, and San Francisco receiving major flooding. Mountainous areas received over 30 inches of rain. A few dozen people lost their lives, and the floods caused roughly $1 billion in property damage across the state. Now, as the rains have slowed, Sharps and many others are receiving help from members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints with flood and mudslide cleanup. Recently, a group of volunteers mucked out 20 homes in 2 neighborhoods in Felton. And I must say, that sounds like a very irritating problem to have to deal with. I personally, I already hate digging, anything that has to do with digging. But like if you're scooping up mud and then carrying it to outside. And I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there's like some more efficient ways to do it, but I'm sure a lot of people are doing it that way. Look at this. Missionaries from California San Jose mission push mud flow following flooding in Santa Cruz County, California. Yeah, I do not like shovels. So anyway, here you go. The church is helping with cleanup and relief efforts. All right, let's go into the next one. This is agripulse.com. California flood assistance available to farmers and ranchers. Now this one, okay, so the last number that we looked at, it said that it was like $1 billion in property damage. Yeah, right here, roughly 1 billion in property damage. But as far as economic losses are concerned, it says this article says approximately 5 to 7 billion in U.S. economic losses are estimated from recent flooding in California, according to catastrophe risk modeling and solutions company Moody's RMS. The USDA is prepared with technical and financial aid for farmers and ranchers impacted by the massive natural disaster. And then here's an orchard all flooded. I don't know what kind of trees those are. If you know what kind of trees those are, put it in the comments below. All right, now this News Nation World, that's really generic. Rain and flooding destroy small farmers' crops and property in north central California. Heavy rains that hit central California between December and January have left grief and loss in the farming community. Many Mexican immigrants, small-scale farmers in Santa Clara and San Benito counties lost all their crops and farm equipment, such as tractors, forklifts, cars, and housing. That is devastating. Could you imagine, like, that's your living and you lose all your crops, and then not only that, but you lose the equipment that you use to grow crops? Said Maria Ines Catalan. Oh, that's interesting. Catalan is that's a language in Spain, spoken in Spain. I served in the Spain Barcelona mission. The primary language spoken in Spain is Castilian Spanish, what you would know as just regular Spanish. But since in Spain there's several different languages spoken, they call that Castilian or Castellano. And then over here in Valencia, Catalonia, and then the Balearic Islands, they speak Catalan. Well, specifically, Valenciano, which is spoken here, and Mallorquin, which is spoken here, are basically a variation of Catalan, but it's Catalan. And then you have the Basque country up here; they speak a completely different language, and then Gallego, which is up here in Galicia, north of Portugal, which is similar to Portuguese. Okay, let's get back to what we were originally talking about. So Maria Ines Catalan says, we're starting again. It's very difficult to be a small farmer. We suffer the most from these climate changes because we do not have money and we rent land in areas prone to fires, droughts, and floods because they are the cheapest. Maria Teresa Morales. Okay. We don't know what will happen. And then right here, my husband says, let's go to Mexico now. So just a really big upset. And then look here, and then here's some flooding right here in the house. And then look inside the house. You have mud all over the floor. And oh, that would suck. Okay. UCR professor of public policy discusses impact of recent California floods. This is from the Highlander. Okay. Kurt Schwab, Associate Dean of the School of Public Policy and Professor of Environmental Economics and Policy, discussed how the state's infrastructure has been struggling to keep up with the growing population and the increasing intensity of rainfall. Quote, it's clear that our stormwater and flooding infrastructure is falling short of what we should expect given California is the 7th largest economy in the world. But the losses are significantly more than this when one considers how much of the water we are not storing or capturing to help refill aquifers and reservoirs. End quote. The state's aging infrastructure is not the only problem. The rapid development of urban areas has resulted in the loss of natural spaces that could absorb excess water. The disappearance of wetlands, marshes, and other natural areas has reduced the state's ability to store water during heavy rainfall. So, I mean, there's always going to be this political slant to things, but this last part is probably somewhat true. But it's a shame, I always remember growing up, there'd be times when, like at church, or my parents would be like, "Hey, we need to pray for rain, we need to pray for snow, we need water," so on and so forth. And could you imagine, and I know a lot of you are dealing with this because you're in California, but could you imagine being in this situation? It's like there's this mega drought going on, and then you get hit by this really intense situation where you're getting all this water, but you can't keep it. It's not. It's like a tease, you know. Okay, and then the last article, Rock 1053, San Diego's Rock Station. Scary prediction about California storms and flooding made by scientists. This is an article from yesterday, February 2nd. I'm recording this on the 3rd, which is Friday. The atmospheric rivers that pummeled California are a far cry from what a series of extreme storms could potentially bring to the state. So, this is referring to that arc storm scenario. Okay. The San Francisco Chronicle says climate scientist Daniel Swain spoke at a legislative hearing on Wednesday that explored the impacts of the recent storm sequence. Quote, "We're nowhere near the kinds of events that we think are possible in a warming climate." End quote. Climate change is increasing the odds that severe storms, like what Californians encountered, will happen more frequently. A warmer atmosphere can hold onto more water, which can translate to stronger storms and heavier downpours. Quote from Swain. There's about a 2 in 3 chance of seeing an event that is about 20% to 30% larger than what we just experienced over the next 40 years or so. End quote. The risk is an upgrade from 50-50 chance that Swain and colleagues reported previously. So, yeah, going, one in, or what did it say? 2 in 3. So like a 33, 66% chance compared to 50. Okay, such an event would be comparable to the Great Flood of 1862, where weeks of storms pounded the state, far worse than the downpours that began on December 26th. I didn't see this, a modern recurrence of an 1862 level flood could, in 2022 dollars, end up being close to $1 trillion with a capital T, dollar disaster, Swain said. So, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if that does happen before the second coming. What happened this time, it may have been a very strong warning for the Lord, for people to get their acts together. And for all we know, maybe later this year, maybe next year, maybe in a couple years, maybe this arc storm will happen, Now that this has happened, at least some people are aware that there's that possibility. So, anyway. Okay, so let's take a look at floods historically. All right, so this is a Wikipedia article. Wikipedia is really good for compiling lists of things, although, sometimes it's probably incomplete. But what I noticed here, and there could be various factors at play. This probably isn't a perfect list, but this is supposed to be a list of major floods. So, for example, you can see in 2001, they only have one flood recorded. For 2002 and 2003, there's only 4. And then in 2004 and 5, there's more. And then in 2006, there's more than 2005 and 2004 and 2005. Then it kind of goes back down, 2008, 2009. And then 2010 by itself has let's see. So in 2004 to 2005, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then in 2010, by itself, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so things are getting a little bit dramatic. 2011 looks about the same. 2012 just 2. 2013, there's 7. 2014 about the same. 2015 about the same. 2016, 17, 18 a little bit more. Like 2017 there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then 2019 it goes up even more. And then in 2020 and 2021 even more. Let's count up 2021 because it looks like that's maybe let's count up 2021. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. 22 in 2021. And 2022 looks about the same, maybe just a little bit less. So, this isn't a very scientific way of looking at it. And like I said, it could be incomplete, but it looks like, it's somewhat thorough. At least going back to like maybe the 90s or so. Before that, it probably gets a little bit more unreliable. But I think that we could, with some degree of confidence, say that major floods, have been on the increase. And maybe if I'm feeling up to it, maybe I'll try and capture all these floods and put them on the timeline, just like I've tried to do. Well, I have done with wars. I think I still have some more pandemics to add. I can't remember. I'll have to go back and look at that list. But I got wars, pandemics, and then I have I need to do I need to work on like economic like events like recessions, depressions, things like that. So I'm still adding to this thing. It's turning into a lifelong project, basically. Um, I can't wait to see it when it's all said and done. But anyway, okay, now specifically for this set of floods that we're talking about in California, there's a Wikipedia article for this. Now, somehow they get the date of December 26th to January 25th, whereas I currently have it as January 15th based on the articles that I've read. And they don't have a source for why they put January 25th. I'm not going to go with that because I feel like what I've seen is a little bit more accurate. Not that there's like an official end date, really, but okay. Now, with this, I just wanted to highlight it says at least 22 fatalities, making it the deadliest U.S. meteorological event of 2023 to date, which, it's not hard to do. It's only the beginning of the year. But still, like I said, it's kind of like the first big thing that's happened this year. Let's look at the timeline again. Let's go ahead and let's go up, 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 up. So this year so far, it started out with the flooding, was started on December 26th of last year. And then we had a 7.6 earthquake in Indonesia, which ties for the largest earthquake of 2022. There were two 7.6s in 2022. One in Mexico. Let's see. Yeah, one in Mexico, and then the other one was Papua New Guinea. All right. And so 2023 has already matched that. Okay. So we've had that, and then the flooding. There may be some other things. If you can think of anything that's big, feel free to put it in the comments below. I may or may not add it. It just depends on what it is, but please feel free to make suggestions. And yeah, we're just going to see how we're going to have to see how the rest of the year goes. So Anyway, it looks like this particular chapter, the California flooding chapter, has roughly come to an end. So I'm gonna call it at January 15th, and we'll just wait to see what happens next. All right, that's gonna be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys